that I'll be talking is how both of them have, both science and spirituality have their particular area of operation. So let's discuss this verse. This is the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is telling, I'll tell the meaning of the verse and then we'll recite it once. Karya Karana Kartrutve. The Bhagavad Gita is a poetic work, and poetry means there are many ornaments, literary ornaments. So here you will see each word in the first line begins with ka ka ka. Karya Karana Kartrutve Hetuhu Prakritiruchyate. So Hetu means cause. I'll explain this in simple terms and then we'll elaborate it. Hetuhu Prakritiruchyate. So Prakriti is material nature. Material nature is the cause of Karya Karana Karana. Is somebody is using a phone and they are hooked to their phone. The survey among teenagers in America, they said, what will it take for you to give up your cell phone? Some people said, we'll need 50,000 US dollars. Some said, we will even give up one of our fingers, but will not give up our phone. So if somebody is very attached to their phone, and if there somebody throws their phone down, they'll be enraged. Now, on the other hand, if somebody is very frustrated with their phone, they're constantly getting distracted, and they just throw the phone away in frustration. Now, they just feel relieved. So when the phone hits the ground and the phone screen cracks, that is an event that is determined by the forces of gravity. How strongly you hurt the phone, from how much height we throw the phone, that is determined by gravity. But the experience is determined by whether one is attached to the phone or one is frustrated by the phone. Or to take another example, okay, I'll take that example after we recite this verse. So events and experiences, let's look at this difference. Karya Karana Kartrutve Hetuh Prakritiruchyate Purushah Sukha Dukkhanam Bhoktrutve Heturuchyate. Newton's laws of motion. Now, yes, we could say you could use Newton's laws of motions to explain. Okay, the ball came at this speed, he swung the bat at this speed, the bat and the ball met at this angle. If the bat had taken the ball had hit the top, bat had taken the top edge, and the ball would have gone high but not have gone over the boundary. So we could explain the entire event in terms of Newton's laws of motion. But so it's a correct explanation. Is it a complete explanation? No. It is also another part is his skill as a batsman, his presence of mind, his footwork, his hand-eye coordination, and all of that also comes into place. So there is the mechanical explanation and the personal explanation, and both go in parallel. The mechanical explanation is in terms of the laws of motion, but there is a personal explanation that is in terms of the expertise of the person. So science focuses on the mechanical explanation. So domain of science is the first half. Karya Karana Kartrutve Hetuh Prakritiruchyate. What are the causes and effects that shape events at the physical or material level? But are there any non-material factors also involved? The same player, if that person is not in good form or is not in a good frame of mind, is a little absent-minded, a little distracted, too much tension, not able to hit the shot, miscue the shot, and the person may get out. So in both cases, you could talk about the Newton's laws of motion, and that could explain why the ball went across the boundary or why the ball didn't go across the boundary. But that alone is not the complete explanation. So that is what we'll be discussing. If you want to understand, science is the study of matter, and spirituality is the study of what matters. Science is the study of matter. Okay, how do material things work? How does one mechanism lead to another mechanism? How does one event lead to another event? but the study of what matters, what is important, which thing is how important. That is the study of what matters. So if we look at how the way we function in life, now there are both these factors which matter. There's the study of matter, but there is the study of what matters. So if they say when the COVID pandemic was there, some countries went for a complete totalitarian lockdown. Now there was this tension, we want to protect lives, but we also want to protect livelihood. We also want to have quality of life. So what do we prioritize? There are many decisions in life which have multiple factors to consider. So let's look at this a little further. So science, as I said, is the study of matter, and spirituality is the study of what matters. Now, what is the interaction between the two of them? So we could say that one is contained in the other. The study of matter is bigger, the study of what matters is below it. Or the one is study of matter, what matters is important, and study of matter is within it. Or we could say that there are distinct domains, maybe with some overlap. There could be various possibilities. Now, before we go ahead with this understanding, you may say, why can't spirituality study what matters? Sorry, why can't science study what matters? Okay, science can study everything. So science can even study what matters. Well, let's see. What happens is, science is a particular way of looking at the world. And at the start of the age of science, now before Newton there was Galileo and others, they decided that when they were looking at the world is infinitely complex at one level. Every small thing can be studied to any degree. Now we can go into and one atom, and there are dozens and dozens of journals which are published every month about atomic physics alone, about one subatomic particle also. So when we take in the world, so we cannot take in all the details of the world. So we focus on certain details. And science, so right now, for example, say I'm looking at you, you're looking at me. So I'm observing whether what I'm speaking is understandable to you or not. You are observing me and you are trying to assess whether what I am speaking makes sense or not, or how it makes sense. Now, at this same time, there are so many other inputs that are coming in. Like I mentioned in the morning also, we are hearing the sound of the fan. Maybe we are hearing some sound of somebody going in the back. We are feeling a little warm. We are feeling a little uncomfortable. So all these sensations are coming in, but you are choosing to focus on some sensations. So all this. So what happens is, for us to gain any comprehension, we need to focus our attention on some things. If at the same time we are trying to be equally conscious of all the inputs from all the senses, it is difficult. There's something in our foreground and something in our background. We need to consciously choose to focus. Sometimes people do multitasking, and some things we can multitask. Say for example, if you are doing some exercise, you can maybe hear some audiobook at that time, or if you're driving a car, you can hear a lecture at that time. But you cannot hear two lectures at the same time because it is the same cognitive pathway that is used. The same resource is being used, so you can't do it very well. So generally, when we focus on one thing, other things go in the background, and that is how we make sense of things. When we are driving a car, we focus on what is ahead of us. We may have some awareness of, okay, this building is here, this person is here, but we can't be equally aware of everything. So envision science also to be like that. So science is a way of looking at the world, and when science encountered the complexity of the world, it divided the world into what is called as primary qualities and secondary qualities. So the primary qualities are basically within science are measurable qualities: length, velocity, density, mass, viscosity, like that. And science decided that, by science I mean the pioneering scientists, and that methodology was followed subsequently. And they acknowledge there are many other parameters also within the universe, but those they decide are secondary qualities. So there is, see, now taste is something which we experience, but science cannot tell us the taste. It can tell the calorie, how many calories are there, which ingredients are there, how much. But we don't, with all our scientific advancement, we don't have anything like a tastometer. The tastometer, how good does it taste? Or nowadays there is so much insecurity about relationships. When a person enters into a relationship, does the other person really care for me? Now, with all our scientific advancement, we cannot have something called a love-o-meter. If a boy proposes to a girl, the girl says, okay, let me take this love-o-meter, put it on your heart. This if you really love me or not. Then I'll decide whether to accept your proposal. No, there's no such thing like that. Why? Because these are non-mathematical, non-measurable parameters. They also exist, but they are not within the domain of science. Now, science consciously chooses to focus on certain parameters, and because of the focus on certain parameters, certain other parameters are neglected. And this is not a deficiency, because with respect to the measurable parameters, science has found amazing correlations, causal connections, and we have been able to make tremendous advancement. So this tremendous advancement has led to a dramatic change in our outer world. Now, if you consider this phone, we can talk with anybody from any part of the world. We can summon information from any part of the world. Now, this is something which, this is what is a common thing today, would be something which was unimaginable even for royalty a few centuries ago, for that matter. So, by the study of matter, we have been able to find many mechanisms and principles that have helped us to alter the outer world around us. At the same time, when attention focuses on one thing, attention goes away from another. So what happens is science operates on the principle of methodological naturalism. That means, like earlier I talked about, that when somebody hits a sixer, then you can say that this is the laws of motion by which how the ball went over the boundary. So, so suppose, or not suppose, so what science does is, science focuses on all material phenomena and look for explanation at the material level for those phenomena. So, who discovered the law of gravity? Sorry? Newton. Okay. So I had gone to speak at Cambridge University of Science and Spirituality. So we passed by that tree where Newton is said to have seen that apple. Some people say it fell in front of him, some people say it fell on him. So that tree is still been preserved. It is like a pilgrimage place for scientists. So now, what happens is, Newton believed in God. But when the apple fell, he asked, okay, what made this apple fall? But when he asked that question, what made this apple fall, he didn't say, oh, God made the apple fall. Although he believed in God, he was not looking for that level of explanation. You remember same event can be explained at different level. I'm feeling cold. It could be because I don't have warm clothes. It could be because the window is not open. It could be because it's winter, because it's a cold part of the world. So explanations can be at different levels. So science looks for explanations for material events at the material level. Now, are there any non-material factors involved? There may be, there may not be. Science does not deal with those primarily. It focuses on material explanations for material phenomena. That is, so now what we call as material, science often uses the word natural. Natural, what we call as materialism in our philosophy, science uses the word naturalism for that. So methodological naturalism means, as a matter of method, we will focus on natural or material explanations for material phenomena. Now there are some scientists, so science is like a tool for acquiring knowledge, a particular way of looking at the world. But there are some scientists or even some people who believe in science so much that they say that they move from methodological naturalism to metaphysical naturalism. That means they start saying that apart from material causes and material effects, there is nothing else that exists. All that exists is material causes and material effects. And that is where there's overconfidence. Say suppose we are going to meet a friend. And when we are going to meet this friend, we have a map with us. And nowadays we have, of course, Google Map. In the past, we would have physical maps. Say we are using Google Maps and we keep going and map says, okay, turn left, now you'll come to a bridge. Now turn right and then you will pass by you'll go through a hill range. Now go this way. Now every single guideline that the map gives, it's right. And whatever it tells it will happen, it happens. We encounter that kind of terrain. So our confidence in it increases. It increases more and more and more. And finally, we reach our friend's place. It says, you have arrived at your destination. And you knock on the friend's door, and the friend opens the door. Welcome. And they look at our map. Says, my map doesn't show you. Therefore, you don't exist. Yeah, friend said, what nonsense. Your brain doesn't exist. The map is a very powerful tool for navigating territory. But the map does not show people. So that the map does not show people does not necessarily mean either that the map is deficient or people don't exist. The map is not deficient, it is efficient for its purpose. But when we extrapolate its purpose from navigating territory to evaluating all of reality, you don't exist. That's a mistake. So similarly, what has happened for many people, as science advanced, science was able to get more and more sense of the material mechanisms. And that's how we had so much stupendous technological advancement. That led to more and more confidence. But the result of this increased confidence was that we started neglecting and eventually rejecting anything that could not be pursued through science, that could not be seen through science. So, for example, as a taste, smell, virtue, let's look at this. So now, if we interact with a person, say we go to some place, we meet some person, and we go back and we tell our friends, I met a very interesting person. Okay, tell me more. Since that person was 152 pounds and 5 feet and 4 inches. Really? Is that the most interesting thing about a person? See, when we talk about people, is it primarily the measurable dimensions that we care about? If we meet a person, are we interested in the WBC and RBC count and platelet count? No. Those are all valid parameters. But when we meet people, that person seemed very intelligent, very smart, very sweet, very whatever qualities we meet. So these are qualities. But now you say somebody is sweet or gentle or kind. We can't measure these qualities. They are experiences. This is events and experiences. How did the separation? So what happens is, this is the key point, that the qualities science considers secondary are primary in our experience. So this is where there is a mismatch. Science is very powerful in its own methodology. In its own domain, credit needs to be given for it. So about America, it is said that Americans think that the world begins from Los Angeles and ends in New York. So LA is on one coast, the western coast, and New York is the east coast. So they said that's all that the world is. There's nothing outside that. So the American president may think that I am the king of the world. Now, now when somebody says this, now if we say the American head of state is not the king of the world, We are not disrespecting America. It's not disrespect or denial of America. I think India's minister told when India was being pressurized to not take oil from Russia, they said, Europe has to stop thinking that Europe's problems are the world's problems, but the world's problems are not Europe's problems. So there is that Eurocentric worldview, or there is a America-centric worldview. So the idea is that yes, we accept that the president of America is a powerful person, but that doesn't make the president of America the ruler of the whole world. Similarly, science is a very powerful tool. It is a powerful tool for measuring and correlating and connecting the measurable at parameters of the universe, what science considers primary parameters. And in that domain, it is powerful. At the same time, there are things which exist beyond that domain. And you remember here when I'm talking about taste or love or kindness, I'm not going into spirituality and talking about God and soul and things like that. We don't need to go there. You may say, who has seen God? Who has seen soul? Fine. Even in our experience, even the things that we consider primary in our lived experience, the scientifically measurable parameters are not the most important thing. Now, see, we go to some social group, and then we say, maybe some club is there. And I didn't like that club. Why? Can we give okay, I went there, my compatibility score was 7. This was 5. That was 6. That was 3. We can't measure like that. So for us, this is, when we are pointing out that the study of matter and the study of what matters. The study of matter centers on what the qualities that science considers primary. The study of what matters is based on the qualities we consider primary. Now, if we want to relate with some person, it's not the WBC and RBC count that will decide whether we want to form a relationship with that person. That might be one small parameter. If they have got some serious problem over there, that we might consider it. But otherwise, it's their personality. And their personality cannot be really reduced to scientifically measurable parameters. So, okay, I think we should turn off some of these lights. Are you able to see the pictures over here? 1, 2, 3 lights over here. This one. Okay, it's better than before. So as I mentioned, study of matter has led to phenomenal technological advancement. But unfortunately, what has happened is study of matter has also led to obsession with matter. And that has led to neglect of everything else. So we need a balance in society. We need a balance in our life. And do we need this? I don't think so. Okay, for this. So the result is that today's society is trying to reduce everything to measurable and mathematical equations. And what happens is equations cannot capture emotions. We cannot reduce emotions down to some equations. So for example, if we consider when a mother sees a child, so what is it now? Mother feels a love for her child. Now, if we look at it from a purely from methodological naturalism perspective, what happens is the mother's love is nothing but a surge of chemicals in her brain cells. Now, is that all there is to it? Well, not really. There's something more to it. It's like, let's consider, say, if you go to some neighbor's, some relative's house and they have some small child, then we may say that just to have fun with that child, we may tickle the belly of that child. Now, if you tickle the belly, what happens is the person laughs. Tickle the belly. Now, if somebody starts laughing, Is that laughter happiness? No, it's just simply a physical reaction to a physical stimulus, isn't it? Now, sometimes if you want to have a serious discussion with someone and that person starts tickling her, stop, you may say, stop it. You want to have a serious discussion. So, if the laughter produced by tickling were happiness, then we all want happiness in our life. So, all that we need to do is let science invite a perpetual tickling meter, perpetual tickling machine, and it can tickle us for the rest of our life and we'll be happy for the rest of our life. No. So, that is simply external. So, just as we understand that something that's tickling, some sensation that produces laughter is not happiness. Yes, laughter results when we are happy. But just laughter itself is not happiness. Happiness is something deeper. So laughter is the surface appearance of happiness. Surface appearance means the appearance on the surface of happiness. But happiness is something deeper. So similarly, what we talk about is the physical level and the deeper level. The same we can apply to the neural level and the deeper level. Yes, when we experience love, there are certain chemicals in the brain which will be secreted, certain areas of the brains will be lit, but the experience itself is deeper. So, this is where science ends up reducing all of human experience to, to physical phenomena, to materially measurable phenomena. Now, to be fair, this is not what science does all the time. As I said, there are a small but vocal number of scientists who are atheistic. They are aggressively atheistic, and they propagate this. So what happens is that there are now even scientists themselves, they are differentiating between two things. There is science and there is scientism. So scientism is scientific imperialism. You know, imperialism means what? Like one country ruling all other countries. Like the Britain, Queen Elizabeth died just now, so she was the last imperial ruler of the world for a long time. So that means one country rules many other countries. That's called imperial. So scientific imperialism means that science claims to have a monopoly on knowledge. That all knowledge has to be acquired only through science. And anything that is not acquired through science is not knowledge. This is not science, this is scientism. Now, one significant problem with scientism is that there is no scientific proof for scientism. That all knowledge has to be acquired only through science. Anything that is not acquired through science is not knowledge. How can we scientifically prove this? But so there is science, and there is a claim built on science, that is scientism. So science itself is a tool for acquiring knowledge, and as far as that tool goes, it's very powerful. But when extra claims are made from science, which are not actually valid, that is where problem comes in. Every area has its own, every field of knowledge has its own domain. So suppose we have got some liquid cash and we want to invest somewhere. So then we consult as an investment consultant, investment guide, and that person gives us impeccable guidance. You invest over here, and when our money increases, invest over there, our money increases. Each time when they give guidance and it improves our financial situation, our faith in them increases. Now, suddenly one night we wake up with a severe ache in the stomach. At that time, will we call our investment guide? What should I do now? No, we won't. Why? Because expertise in one field does not mean expertise in other fields. They're two different domains. So similarly, science has its domain and it is very powerful in its own domain. But there are many other domains of reality beyond these. So I'll take two more points, but before I go ahead, I'll summarize what I discussed. If there are any questions, you would like to discuss those questions. So I said, I started with science as the study of, so Bhagavad Gita says that there's a study of that events are caused by within material nature, experiences are due to the consciousness of the person. And that same thing, the study of matter and the study of what matters, that's what we separated. And in that, how science focuses on certain primary qualities, certain quality that is considered primary, which are measurable. Whereas in our lived experience, those are not the primary qualities, those are the secondary qualities for us. So science within its domain is extremely powerful tool, but when its knowledge claims extend beyond its domain, that is where problems start coming. And that is not science, but that is scientism. So science can help us navigate reality, navigate reality. But spirituality can actually tell us the purpose of life. Science can help us, science can increase the velocity of our life. We can move faster in our life if we want. But it is spirituality that gives us direction for our life. I can go very fast, but where should I be going? What is it that is important? What is worth living for? That is what spirituality can provide us. Science can improve our outer world. Spirituality can improve our inner world. And we need both to be improved so that we can actually function in the world. What do you mean science can improve our outer world? It's obvious. We can have fans, we can have air conditioning, we can have so many things by which we can improve our outer world. But inner world means that improve our inner world means we get a better sense of what matters. Somebody is short-tempered. The child gets angry and just the temper tantrum, throws a heavy, expensive toy or something expensive, breaks a TV or breaks a phone. Okay, you got angry. That is much more valuable. What matters is important for us to know. In fact, all the problems in life, generally if you consider lust and any crime that we consider in human society, it can be traced back to lust, anger, greed, envy, pride, and illusion. So whenever somebody does something wrong, harmful for themselves or harmful for others, what is happening is their sense of what matters has become distorted. I saw one anti-alcoholic campaigning ad. So this was in Russia. So they said that on the TV there was a news that the price of vodka has increased. So then there's one child his father is drinking vodka and he knows that the father is alcoholic. So he asks his father, will you drink less now? And his father looks at his son, no, you will eat less now. So what has happened over here is what matters has become horrifyingly distorted. That means my drinking is more important than my child is eating. We consider everywhere when there is a misdirection of what matters. That is what leads to problems in life, individually and collectively. So spirituality aligns our values with reality. It helps us understand what really matters in life. That is not what something science can provide us. That's why improving our inner world means what? It means aligning our understanding of what matters with what actually matters. What we consider important and what is actually important. When the two matter, when the two align, that's when we can function smoothly. If I'm driving in a car and if I think what matters is, okay, sightseeing. What is there on this side of the road? What is that side of the road? What is that side of the road? But what really matters is seeing what is ahead of the road, isn't it? So what matters for me and what matters actually, if the two don't align, there can be disaster because of that. So when we grow spiritually, essentially what happens is what matters aligns with more and more what actually matters. And thus our life becomes less trouble-filled and it becomes more fulfilling. So any questions or comments at this point? Yes, ma'am.
Srila Prabhupada often uses the word science to refer to Vedic science. Now, definitely, it does not operate on the basis of methodological naturalism or inductive reasoning. So, like, how to explain this, like, the word science, or is it something to do with the etymology of the word, like, which means special knowledge?
Thank you. Good question. So, when Prabhupada uses the word Vedic science, he's not talking about some system of knowledge that operates based on methodological knowledge, methodological naturalism or inductive reasoning. Yes. Words have different meanings which we sense from their context. Say for example, now in English, the word which has the maximum meanings is run. Run is said to have 680 meanings. Say, I go running every morning. My washing machine is not running. Who is running for election this time? This person is running for election. That is why I am running away from this country. So now we have the same word run. They have multiple meanings, and we look at context to understand what a person means, what the meaning means. So if we don't look at the context, he ran away to America. He has to run for a long time to get to America. If somebody says, there we are using run in the metaphorical sense, not a literal sense. So like that, words have multiple meanings. So let's consider the word energy. So say a scientist in a lab may tell their assistant that I have run out of energy. That means maybe their battery is getting charged again. So that's now they will get the charger and start charging it. But now that same scientist comes back home and tells their spouse, I have run out of energy. The spouse is not going to get a charger over, isn't it? So there it was using energy in terms of technical term. It doesn't know electrical energy or whatever. Then here you are referring to physical energy. I'm just exhausted. So we use words in different contexts. So the word science has a meaning in a technical sense, and the word science has a meaning in a general sense. In a technical sense, it is the body of knowledge that operates on methodological naturalism, using certain forms of reasoning. Actually, science doesn't only use inductive reasoning. Science also uses abductive reasoning. We can talk about that separately. But basically, science, there is science, a body of knowledge which operates in a particular method, using a particular method. But science, in general parlance, in general language sense, is also used to a systematic body of knowledge. So when Prabhupada says this is a science, he says this is not just sentimental, it is a systematic body of knowledge. There is a rational analysis that is there. There is certain level of predictability is there, certain level of repeatability is there. And anybody, any part of the world practices spirituality, they can experience certain transformations. You study the Bhagavad Gita, the after principles of Bhakti Yoga, and they will find their anarthas going down. They will find the meaning and purpose in their life becoming more and more prominent. So so there are certain parameters of science that do apply to the Vedic body of knowledge also. Prabhupada uses the word in a more general sense, not a technical sense. Any other questions or comments?
Naturalism.
Methodological naturalism.
So can you explain a little bit, like what was the subsequent problem which you pointed out? Few things.
Yeah, methodological naturalism. See, basically, say consider now we had the pandemic, COVID. So in the 15th, 16th century, there was the Black Plague that killed almost 1/3 of Europe. Devastating it was. So at that time, there are some people, you could say the religious people at that time, or who were Christians, we don't want to. Some people said that, oh, this is caused by some dark spirits occupying people, possessing people. And because of dark spirits, people, their body gets deformed and distorted, and it starts becoming dysfunctional, and they die. And then they said, what do you need to do then? You need to do exercise. You need to do some exercises, some kind of practices to drive those dark spirits away from them. So science said, we want to look for material explanations for material. Therefore, okay, what is materially different in this person's body and this person's body? And that's how we came up with germs. The concept of germs, and then germs can be, these are germs, these can be removed in this way. And that's how we came with, later with antibiotics and other things. So, to look for material explanations for material phenomena is a sensible way of looking at life. And it is not limited only to modern science. It is there in Ayurveda also. Ayurveda is a traditional Vedic medicine, Vedic branch of medicine. And there also, if somebody has some digestive problems, then they say, okay, your kapha has become your pitta has become too much, or this has happened, that has happened. And how do you balance the pitta? They don't just say, okay, chant these mantras. No, they say, take this food, avoid this kind of food, take these medicines. So what are they doing? There's a material imbalance. There is a disease which is caused by a material imbalance, and then we try to restore the material balance. So methodological naturalism is not the monopoly of modern science. It is used by other branches of knowledge also. But Ayurveda doesn't go from methodological naturalism to metaphysical naturalism. So Ayurveda doesn't say, yeah, because we can find out the cause of disease this way, this way, this way, therefore there is no need for any higher being. There is no room for any higher being. And no higher being exists at all. No, it's not like that. There are explanations at multiple levels. So the problem is not that the explanation is wrong, it's incorrect. The problem is that the explanation is incomplete. Incomplete means that, say, somebody gets malaria. Now we may say they get malaria because they're bit by a mosquito. The mosquito was carrying certain germs. But you may say in a house there are 6 people living, only 1 person got malaria. You say maybe that person had lower immunity. Okay, but then we observe maybe somebody else has even lower immunity. So that person didn't get malaria, this person got malaria. So the mosquito bit this person, maybe the mosquito didn't bit that person. Why is that? So what happens is that explanations are at multiple levels. So the Vedic understanding is that we all have our particular karma. And if somebody by their karma is supposed to get malaria, then the mosquito will come and bite. And somebody is not meant to get malaria, the mosquito will not bite. So, and the mosquito is not conscious that I am giving this person their karma. The mosquito is just going along. But Ishvara Sarvabhutana Mriddeshe Arjuntishtiti Brahman Sarvabhutani Yantrarudhani Maya. Krishna guides the wanderings of all living beings as the Paramatma in their hearts. So, we accept the correct explanation as correct. That yes, malaria is caused by mosquito bites. But is that the complete explanation? Not necessarily. There are many places where that explanation will not only be will actually backfire. Like if mother starts thinking that actually this whole idea of love is illusion, it's just some chemicals in my brain. So I'll find out some other way to get the chemicals that my baby go old and go sick and die. I don't care for the baby. Society will collapse. So the material explanations for material phenomena are valid, but they're not complete. And especially in terms of Einstein, he himself said that Einstein was, do you know which religion he belonged to? No, religion, not his worldview, his religion. Yeah, he was Jewish. So he was in Germany, he was in that part of Europe, and when Nazis started killing all Jews, he fled from there and he got asylum in America. And there he flourished. So Einstein himself said that if I were to take a strictly scientific worldview, then I would have to say that actually the Nazis were the Germans, the followers of Hitler, who killed about 6 million Jews in their camps, that concentration camps, and then about 6 million other people, gypsies and others, in other torturous activities. So other forms of torture. So he said that if I took a strictly scientific worldview, I would have to presume that actually none of the Nazis were responsible for killing anyone. It was a certain brain chemicals change in their way. That's why they started hating the Jews and they killed the Jews. Now, can we function like that in life? We can't. Now, our very system of justice, our system of accountability, is based on the fact that we humans are responsible and we can make choices based on our capacity to choose wisely. So we are responsible for our choices. That means that if we only do the mechanical explanations, in this case neurochemical explanations, then all idea of accountability will go. We can't function that way. So there are several other consequences. So basically, the idea of love, the idea of responsibility, the idea of virtues, all that will get eliminated if we consider only methodological naturalism as the ultimate explanation. Go from there to metaphysical naturalism. Any other questions, comments? Okay, so I'll move to the second part now, where we'll be discussing about some specific. So once we understood these broad domains, there is the domain of matter and there's a domain of what matters. So now, with this understanding, let's look at some specific places where there may seem to be some conflict between science and spiritual. And we'll see whether the conflict is real and how it can be resolved. So, one of them is the idea of miracles. According to science, miracles are not possible at all because everything has to obey the laws of nature. So we have, which is the greatest miracle that Krishna performed in Vrindavan? Yes, lifting over them. So now, if somebody has this methodological naturalism or metaphysical naturalism, says, the idea that somebody can lift a whole hill on a finger, it's ridiculous. It's not possible. So we say that, how did Krishna find the center of gravity to put his pinky over there and balance the whole hill? Now, Krishna does not have to find the center of gravity because he is the source of gravity. So, Maya Adhyakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharachara. So, we do not deny the reality of gravity. But we understand that there are principles beyond gravity also, which govern gravity. So in that sense, miracles are not against science. They are above science. Science looks at material explanations of material phenomena and we accept that there are material explanations for material phenomena. But on some special occasions, some other factors may also come into play. And when those factors come into play, then our normal explanations may not work. Some people may say that, this is all mythology. In the past, people believed all kinds of fairy tales. That's why they accepted as a truth. Now we are rational. We should not believe such stories. But interestingly, you'll see that even Krishna Lila. Can I have some water, please? In Krishna Lila itself, after Krishna lifts the Govardhan hill, and then after that 7 days gets over, then the Vrajvasis come to Nanda Maharaj. And they ask him, how did Krishna lift this hill? So it's impossible. How could a child have lifted a hill like this? It's not possible. But we saw it happen. How did it happen? So they also know that heavy objects like a hill cannot be lifted. And it's extraordinary. But then Nanda Maharaj says, actually when Krishna was born, when we did the, no, not Krishna, when Krishna, we did the name giving ceremony of Krishna, at that time Gargamuni had come. And Gargamuni said, told me that your son is just like Narayan. Just like Narayan. Narayan can do anything. Narayan can lift a hill, also Krishna can lift his hill. So basically, they accept the normal workings of science, or they may not use the word science over there, but our normal understanding that heavy objects cannot be lifted easily. That is accepted over there. But they understand that there are parameters beyond our experiences also. So now we don't go about accepting anything and everything as a miracle. We also accept that there are rational principles that govern the universe. But sometimes those rational principles may be suspended. And that is how miracles happen. So that's one thing about miracles. Now, beyond miracles, so we accept the possibility of miracles, but that doesn't mean that we look for a miraculous explanation for everything. We accept normal explanations whenever they are possible. And that's how a devotee has a strong rational faculty also. So we see this rational faculty in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes also. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Vrindavan, at that time, there was this rumor that had spread. And every night, Krishna appears in Vrindavan. And Krishna dances on the head of Kaliya, and he actually, Krishna dancing on the head of Kaliya, his boots are shining, and Krishna is gracefully dancing. So, when Mahaprabhu heard this, Mahaprabhu didn't pay attention to it. And then his servant, he said, I want to go and have darshan of Krishna. And Mahaprabhu, what did he do? Premera chapat. He slapped him lovingly. He says, don't you know that Krishna doesn't come in Kali Yuga? It's not Krishna. And then after that, a few days later, some people came and they said, we actually investigated this. These were learned people. They said, and we found that actually there was a fisherman who would go in his boat for fishing at night. And because it was cold, he would put some kind of cloth on his head. And there was some kind of lamp on near his head. So people thought that lamp was like the jewel on Kaliya's head. And they thought the boat was like the body of Kaliya. And they thought this fisherman was Krishna. So Mahaprabhu did not jump to the explanation. Oh yeah, this Vrindavan Krishna has appeared over here. Let's go and worship Krishna. So there is rational explanation. There's room, abundant room for rationality. So that's one point. Miracles, we accept the possibility of miracles, but we don't jump to miracles as the explanation for everything. That we can't seem to explain immediately. So having said that, now let's look at some other areas of controversy. Now, do you feel that there are any areas where science and spirituality, there is some conflict among them? Sorry? Origin, yes. Yes? Yeah, of course. No, but that's the whole point, Science cannot, if I ask you, does your mother love you? Of course my mother loves me. Can you use science to measure if your mother loves you? How much your mother loves you? Give me scientific proof that your mother loves you. That is the whole point of the discussion, that there is much in reality that exists beyond the domain of science. Now, is there any other logical way to infer their existence? We can discuss that. But leave alone spiritual reality. Even in our experienced reality, there are many things which we experience as real, but which science cannot measure. So that's what we are trying to do over here. The idea is there scientific proof for the existence of God. That question itself indicates that we are taking the domain of science beyond its valid domain. Science is not, God is a non-material reality. Science looks for material explanations for material phenomena. So you cannot apply that question itself. It's like, say, can you use a vernier calipers to measure the weight of a person? No, the tool and the object are different. So yes, so now see that there is scientific, there is unscientific, and there is trans-scientific, something which is beyond the domain of science. So that's why we should not equate science with rationality. There are rational ways, logical ways in which we can infer the existence of God. There are logical ways in which we can infer the existence of the soul. There are logical ways in which you can even infer the existence of devatas. There are logical ways in which you can infer the law of karma. But logical is not the same as scientific. Rational is not the same as scientific. So science is a particular way of acquiring knowledge, and that can give us powerful knowledge about a particular domain within reality. So we can talk about, let's consider the law of karma. Yes, the exact dynamics of law of karma we can't infer, but the principle that actions have consequences, that is something which everybody accepts. The whole idea of science is based on causes produce effects. Effects come from causes. If there are no cause-effect connection, there will be no science at all. So that principle, that cause-effect connection is there. It's foundational to science. Now, what all are the factors involving in cause-effect connection? That scope expands more and more and more. So what happens is that some people have a very poor metabolic system. Say they eat a little food and their body bloats up. Some people, they have a very strong metabolic system. Now they treat their tongue like a conveyor belt. And still, they still remain slim. So what is happening over here? Normally, if somebody eats a lot, they'll gain weight. But there could be other factors involved. If a person has a very strong metabolism, then maybe they don't gain weight that much. So there is factor A, there is cause A and effect B. That's the normal connection. But there are other factors involved. So how many other factors are involved? What all other factors are involved? That as our worldview expands more and more, we'll see more and more factors are involved. So karma is just the basic principle of cause and connection expanded to a domain far beyond what science normally perceives. So science talks about study of matter, but karma involves consciousness. That what is the consciousness of a person when that person did that action? Based on that, we decide the results. Based on not we decide, the results are determined. The consequences, the results are determined. Yes. Okay, we'll come back to it. There was one question here about origins. So that with respect to origins, there can seem to be contradictions. Well, they don't necessarily have to be contradictions, because we need to understand that science and spirituality, they look at the same world from different perspectives. So let's take an example to illustrate this. If we have, say somebody is a very attractive person, somebody is a beauty queen. Now, when we look at that person, somebody is Miss Universe, or what is the male required? Mr. Universe? Is there something like that? Is there a Mr. Universe? No. Sorry? Maybe. Anyway, somebody is very attractive. Now, they look attractive to our eyes. But if we look at their skin under a microscope, now it will be like a rocky mountain terrain with craters and boulders and peaks and ditches. So what happens at a particular scale of perception, it looks attractive. At another scale of perception, it may not look attractive. If we take a person may look very attractive, but in Buddhistic meditation, they have one thought exercise that if you feel very attracted to a person, visualize that person without their skin, just a skeleton, with all the organs hanging out. Whatever attraction you have, the attraction will go away with it. So that's a very nihilistic kind of meditation. But the point is that at a particular scale of perception, things look attractive. But another scale of perception, they look very different. It's not just with respect to attractiveness. If we take chalk and we take coal, now chalk is white, coal is black. We grind both of them into powder and put them into boxes. And now we mix the two powders together. We get grey powder. But if we, so we, to our eye, it is grey powder. To our unaided eye, it is grey powder. But if we look at it under microscope, what is it? It is white granules, black granules. It's white particles, black particles. There's nothing grey over there. So the point is how we perceive things depends on the scale of perception, the way we perceive things. So what happens is science perceives things at again material explanations for material phenomena. So because of that, science begins with the assumption that there are no conscious agents. Okay, particles came together and this is what happened thereafter. Well, okay, maybe it was like that, maybe it was not like that. But the point is that science cannot perceive consciousness. It does not look even for consciousness and conscious beings. That's the limitation of its method. And one more problem with respect to scientific method applied to origins is that all science is not born equal. So the science which helps us, we dial a particular number among the millions of people with phones. When we dial a particular number, that person is called. Simple science. The science that leads to airplanes and telecommunication, that science is developed using a very different methodology than the science about origins. What difference? The science normally works on inductive reasoning. Can you say inductive reasoning? No, I'm not talking about in terms of our thing, scientific method. What is inductive reasoning? Yes. So okay, so next will happen. So it's like if we observe something happening n times, we see it repeated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, n times, then we'll say n plus 1 time also the same thing will happen. So till hundreds and thousands of years we have seen every morning the sun rose. Therefore we can say tomorrow morning the sun will rise. So based on a finite set of observations, we make predictions about future events. That's inductive reasoning. So Newton saw an apple falling, and then it is not only an apple, it's a stone falling. It's a brittle object, glass fell. So like that, and it's not just in UK, it fell in France, it fell in America, it fell in India. There's repeatable. And based on that, what happened is this inductive reasoning led to the principle of gravity. Now gravity works remarkably well at our level. But as science advanced toward the cosmic level and toward the subatomic level, in both those domains, gravity stopped working. That's why for the cosmic domain, science came up with a theory of relativity. And for the subatomic level, we came up with quantum mechanics, quantum physics basically. So the point is that when science comes up with a particular theory, it is a set of observations and inferences drawn from that set of observations. Something is repeated many times, from that. This is how most science works. Most science, inductive reasoning works well. But when we go towards origin, science cannot. How did the universe come about? We cannot do 100 times. Universe coming about, but we cannot repeat it even. So for science, action of something like a mystery. It went to that person, murder. Ah, knife had So, servant who that room at 9 o'clock at night, person 9 o'clock he went, the person. So what happened? Now, you cannot ask the murderer to come back again and do the murder again, and we'll observe you in the camera and then we'll catch you. So what do you do at that time? Maybe if there's a camera near the door, okay, he had a 5-year-old nephew room at night. Okay, put a knife through the body. Okay, then in the morning, his grandmother went into that room, but she went to pick something up and went away. He didn't disturb her. But she prayed. Then there's the butler. He went at 11 o'clock. Oh, maybe the butler killed him. So, based on our observations, what we do is infer the best explanation. But there could be always unknown parameter. Maybe there is some secret trapdoor, and the murderer went down by the. So basically this is how mystery novels are solved. So in this, you cannot come to a conclusive explanation by repeating the event. It is just observe the events and with the and we infer to the best explanation. When it's an origin, remote historic, basically what science uses is deductive reasoning or inference to the best explanation. And that is why those findings of science are not very reliable. There's a physicist quite around, John Wheeler. So he used to teach astrophysics, and one of his students told me, "Sir, this astrophysics theory is very." He says, "Don't worry. Theory are like classes. If you miss one, another one is soon." So what happens that this statement about astrophysics is not a statement about physics, and it's not a statement about science. Many things in physics and science can be repeated, and that which is coming from repeated observations that is far more reliable than that theory that is coming from abductive reasoning. We speculate about this is that time, these were the probable factors for the causes. That means so more scientific theories about origins, they come from abductive reasoning, and that is why they are not very reliable. Even within scientific domain, there are often questions about these theories. That's why we don't have to be a campaigner for these theories or a campaigner against these theories. Yeah, that is within the current data set that science has, we come to this theory. That data set, and who knows, that data set may also change. And even with the best data set, they will come to some material mechanisms for explaining the particular event. But there are many factors beyond the material which also need to be considered. So that's how we can see that science has its and spirituality. So particular theory is true. No, we don't have to get into that conflicting discussion. That's not the most important thing. The particular theory is not. That is not as important as whether that theory is based on reliable scientific method and whether that theory is actually going to explain the totality of reality. It will explain only one aspect of reality, if and when it is accurate. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, please.
I said that sun is far away as compared to the sun. When I say that sun is near as compared to there is no time.
So science says that sun is further from the earth than the moon, whereas Vedic science says the opposite. Well, again, different ways of looking at the world. And in Vedic cosmology, there is something called a vertical dimension. See, for example, generally you ask people. So people conflate the scientific way of looking at the world and the religious or spiritual way of looking at the world. If you ask somebody, where is heaven? Say it's up. If you ask somebody in India, where is heaven? They'll say it's up. If you ask somebody in America, they'll say, where is heaven? It's up. But India and America are opposite sides of the globe. So up are two opposite directions. So where is up? So that up is not a physical up. It's a metaphysical up. It's a higher level of consciousness. So when we say heaven exists up, we may point it physically up, but actually it's up in terms of higher level of consciousness. It's a metaphysical reality. So in science, or in Vedic science, there is this vertical dimension which is based on consciousness. So when it is said that the sun is the moon is further than the sun, what it means is there are different dimensions being considered. Let me repeat a little so find that diagram. Say if there is one building here, somebody is staying on the ground floor of the building, and somebody is staying on the second floor of another building, and somebody is staying on the 10th floor of another building. So this is ground floor, this is A, this is B, this is C. Now, one sense you could say that the second floor person is closer, and the 10th floor person is further. But if you come to know that this second floor is in the next building, and the 10th floor is in the next building, then the distance is the same. But the second floor person is 1 mile away, and the 10th floor person is in just the adjacent building. Then in terms of height, the second floor person is closer. But in terms of the actual distance, second floor person is much further away. So in that sense, the ground floor person is Earth, the second floor person is the sun, and the 10th floor person is the moon. So in terms of vertical dimension, the moon is further than the sun. But in the effective distance, the sun is said to be far, far away from the earth. And the actual distance works out to be much, much greater. So if you go into the Bhagavatam cosmology in details, it is this vertical dimension which makes a lot of difference. Okay. Yes, please. Moon landing. Okay. Okay. So basically, this is strange. Sorry. Okay. I'll try to find this PPT, but let me quickly explain what is going on over here. So, with respect to the moon issue, Srila Prabhupada made many different statements at different times. Sometimes Prabhupada said that we did not go to the moon. Sometimes Prabhupada said, hey, even if they went to the moon, what did they get from there? They just got some dust. Sometimes Prabhupada said that, so for example, in the Bhagavad introduction, Prabhupada says that, okay, we have endeavored a lot to rise to the moon, but we are not endeavored much to raise our consciousness. The Bhagavad Gita will guide us to raise our consciousness. Now, when Prabhupada wrote the book Easy Journey to Other Planets, that was when this moon mission, it was before the moon mission, but it was, the mission was gaining, was gripping the human imagination. Russia had sent their, USSR had sent Sputnik at that time. So that was the first book that Prabhupada wrote, Easy Journey to Other Planets. And Prabhupada dedicated that book to the scientists of the world. That was his, he did not dedicate it to spiritual master, he did not dedicate it to anybody Acharya, dedicated to scientists of the world. And if you read that book, it's a very non-confrontational book. Prabhupada says, okay, you use this method to go to the space, but there are other methods given in the scriptures. So Prabhupada's point was not so much whether man went to the moon or not. Prabhupada's point was, don't get too excited. See, what happens is sometimes when Prabhupada multiple statements on one issue, then our focus should not be in one statement and absolutizing. That Prabhupada himself said in the Upanishad that there are three ways to go to other planets. One is by you getting yogic powers, another is by worshipping the Devata and going to that planet by the blessing of the Devata, and third is by mechanical spacecrafts. So the point is that Prabhupada had a particular emphasis. The emphasis was that, especially in the 1960s, the idea of we going to the moon had just captured the human imagination so much. People were constantly talking about this. Prabhupada's point was, don't get too excited about this. Even if you go to the moon, what are you going to do over there? You're going to sleep and defend the earth. There's nothing going to be special over there. You need to raise your consciousness. So, that we went to the moon or we didn't go to the moon, that was not Prabhupada's central teaching. Prabhupada did not start the International Society for debunking the moon mission. The International Society for what? For creating consciousness. You have to always see which controversy, which is ours. So, for example, somebody say that. Somebody say, went to the moon. Somebody may say, we didn't go to the moon. The point is, whether we are saying go to the moon or we don't go to the moon, the important thing is, are we going to Lord Krishna? Now, whether we went to the moon or we didn't go to the moon at the time of our death, no, it's not going to matter whether we went to the moon or we didn't go to the moon. We believed whether we went to the moon or we didn't believe we went to the moon. What will matter is whether we are remembering Krishna or not. So these are circumstantial issues. Now there are many conspiracy theories. Now, when I use the word conspiracy theory itself, a certain amount of bias that comes into it. There are many people, even scientifically, science journal, who have proposed some problem with the machine that went to the moon. Somebody wants to go into that, they can go into that. The thrust of Prabhupada's teaching was that these developments don't take activity. So it is not that Prabhupada in every class that you hear, this Prabhupada constantly say, we didn't go to the moon, we didn't go to the moon, we didn't go to the moon. No, Prabhupada's focus is, we are actually not our physical selves. Our core is spiritual. No, worldly pleasures cannot give us real happiness. We are meant for something higher in life. So that is Prabhupada's mission. So if somebody wants to go into do some specific study of the subject, they can do it. But it's not in any way a central teaching either of the Krishna conscious philosophy or of Prabhupada, whether we go to the moon or we go to the moon. Point was, don't let your consciousness get caught in them. Focus your consciousness on the right view of Krishna. Prabhupada's parameters also were very different. He said that his focus was on, like in the Bhagavad Gita introduction, let's endeavor to raise our consciousness. We are entering so much for scientific development, let's endeavor some little bit at least for spiritual development. Any other questions? Yes, please.
it happens because of some early planet or comes us said that it happened because of Rahu. So how can
Okay. So script say that eclipses have happened because of Rahu and Ketu. See again, I earlier talked about multiple explanations. If we look into Jyotisha cosmology, there's a difference with the two body cosmology. In Indian wisdom tradition, even in Vedic wisdom tradition, Bhagavatam cosmology is not the only cosmology. The other cosmology, that is Jyotisha cosmology. So they give in the Jyotisha cosmology there is a description of the movements of various celestial objects, and it is described that Rahu and Ketu. In today's term, we can say they are considered non-light reflecting objects. So they are not very equal to us. So if you look at the path of Rahu and Ketu that are in the Jyotish Shastras, actually be there at the time when the sun, moon, and the earth come. That's causing lunar or solar eclipse. So Rahu and Ketu also in time. Rahu and Ketu as the cause of eclipse does not predict the explanation that modern physics comes up with. So in Vedic cosmology, it is not just the physical parameters of events are considered. Rahu and Ketu are considered to be inauspicious planets. When you say inauspicious, what does that mean? That means that when they become prominent, certain untoward events, certain unfortunate events, likelihood of happening increase. Bhagavatam does not say Rahu and Ketu the son of the moon. It is Rahu and Ketu of the moon. That both of them in parallel. If you go, I'm unable to find the diagram over that chart for this. It's you go on my website, the spiritual, and search for eclipses. You'll find a more detailed answer with this what I told, except that path of eclipse, the path of Ketu, and how it overlaps with the path of the sun and the moon. And they are say that modern
aside, you know that some rovers have landed on moon. So what I basically understood is that the moon that we see or the moon that supplies the rasa in fruits and vegetables is not the actual body where this landers or rover has reached. Is it correct, Prabhu?
yes. So wherever the spacecraft sent by Earth, the actual moon. Well, yes, reality exists at multiple levels, and based on our consciousness, we can perceive reality. Not a very difficult concept. Say if somebody is alcoholic, now they go to some high security US or Indian intelligence department office. Now there may be extremely valuable files over there. They are only looking for alcohol. And look at those files, they will not even value those files, they don't care for those files. Because their consciousness that forward, another example. So somebody is working on PCs, but now in some giant mainframe computer, there are hundreds of terminals associated with the process. So what is just a data entry? They can just operate some file. They can operate some folders. Now if they try to some other folder, you don't have access to. So sometimes that drive may even be invisible, so that they don't even know that it exists. So somebody, the CEO of that company, they have access to all the files. So depending on the position of a person in the hierarchy of the organization, they may have access to different levels of files in the file structure of the data of the organization. So similarly, within the universe, different beings have access at different levels. The moon is a celestial object which is perceivable to our eyes. But so even if physically we go to the moon like that, we have not developed the higher consciousness or the karma to perceive the moon as a heavenly object. That's why even if we go to physically, we will not be able to perceive Chandra Loka. Yes, what you're saying is true. It's like if you have a map of a, you have the map of a country, or if we have the experience of Delhi, we physically go there. So similarly, we need to raise our consciousness to a particular level to experience Svargaloka. Otherwise, geographically, we or cosmologically, we might go from one place to another, but that won't make much difference. See, it's what is, I'm not sure actual is the word for it. We operate, our senses operate in particular space. We see vision. Moon is- No, it is not. Thank you. One last question. We'll continue tomorrow. Yeah.
Finds planetary system as the sun or moving stereo and the earth is but in science or modern science we find that earth is moving but the sun is why it's complex.
Okay, so the Vedic cosmology is geocentric. The, the Earth is the sun is moving. Bhagavatam cosmology is heliocentric. Sorry, the modern cosmology is heliocentric with the sun in the center. Well, two things here. First is that these are two very different ways of looking at the universe. And we can't just very straightforward compare this. Like we have mainstream system of medicine, the allopathy now. Now another alternative system of medicine is Ayurveda. Now in Ayurveda, the central components of health is the kapha vata pitta. Now if you go to allopathy, there's no clear equivalent of kapha vata pitta. You can call bile, mucus and other things, but they're not exactly the same. So our view depends on our I is the human way and allopathy from a different way. And because these two very different ways of perceiving the body, the way the body is analyzed in terms of components is different. So the Bhagavatam analyzes the universe from a different purpose, perspective. So these are both models of the universe. Like earlier I said, a map. A map is not the territory. If I say, I don't say, if you tell my friend, I don't see you on the map, therefore you don't exist. So the map is not the territory. The map. So similarly, whether we take a heliocentric, both models territory. Now we may say, okay, the heliocentric model is wrong. Okay, that's one way of looking at it. But even with the heliocentric model, uh, in the Vedic cosmo, in in the astrology, in eclipses are predicted, phases of the moon are predicted, and they are predicted with accuracy. So from the we take the we are able They're world from different perspectives. Like India may have politics. Have, on the political map, the state boundary, the district boundary, the physical map, plain. This is a plateau. This is where the slogan is prominent. There are two different maps coming from different perspectives. Some ways we can correlate things. These things may not be correlatable, but then don't get that much. Devotees have done research on this, and those who are interested, I can connect with the research to those devotees. But these are models, and is Western cosmology, the heliocentric model was being used. Even that time also they were able to, sorry, before the heliocentric, when the geocentric model was being used, at that time was able to predict eclipses and phases of the moon and other things. These are models. One model may be more accurate within our frame of reference right now, and we can use that. But the other model also giving workable results. That model is also acceptable. Reality is beyond all models. Both models are tools for us to understand reality. The
Hare Krishna. Will be open. We'll have participate in the ecstatic dancing.